everyone. Welcome back to the Apartment 6 podcast. I'm Jess.
And I'm Marissa.
And today we're going to be running through the best advice and or lessons that we've ever received or
learned,
gathered when it comes to lessons. I guess
yeah.
Most of them are advice, but not necessarily like, here's how to do this or fix this. It's just kind of like we've gone to people in our lives and they've said these little nuggets of knowledge and they've stuck with us and we've used them in our own lives, and we thought it would be fun to share them with you because there's stuff that we kind of like live by on a daily basis and that might resonate with you and help you out in a situation that you're going through right now, or maybe you'll just remember them and they'll stick with you for the future the way that they stuck with us.
Yeah.
And that's it. So stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, let's get into our roses and thorns. Marissa, what is your thorn of the week?
My thorn of this week is just that it's just driving me crazy that I can't plan for anything in life. Like, I feel like you've structured the same sentiment in saying, like, it's sad for you to not have anything to look forward to.
Yeah.
And, like, with my personality type, it's, like, essentially the same thing. But for me, what bothers me the most is that, like, I can't make plans.
Yeah, whether it's fun or not.
Yeah, just like everything. It makes me feel so like lost.
Yeah.
Like I just feel like a piece of seaweed just like floating in this apartment. I'm like
not the ocean, but in our apartment.
Yeah, specifically.
How did seaweed get in our apartment, old man?
The walls are filling with water and we're both seaweed.
We're pretty far from the coast, but we're going under.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to feel grounded these days when there's nothing to latch onto. Like everything is so vague. And I feel like when we entered this year, I think we maybe even said this in a podcast that like this year felt really positive because it felt like at some point in the year things would lessen up and like COVID would be better and we would get the vaccine, and like that's still true. Yeah. But it's almost like the hope of that is making me more crazy.
Antsy? Yeah,
because I'm like, okay, like I know it's getting better, but like what's the tangible
when am I going to start to feel
that? Yeah. It's just it's so much vagueness, and it's just like, yeah, I'm a floating seaweed.
So I'm going to flip it on you and say, like, what are you doing or who are you talking to? Like, what does make you feel grounded?
Who am I talking to? You. That's it.
Oh, that's a good point. Just us two going back and forth, yelling across from our rooms. What makes you feel grounded in the midst of a world that overall doesn't feel grounded to you?
I don't have an answer to that question, but I think that's a good guiding question moving forward to like actually actively.
That's why I asked.
Think about that. Like I don't really know how to answer it now because I haven't been making an effort to solve my problem.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a good way to approach it. Like, okay, yes, I'm feeling like this and this is all out of my control, but like what things do I have control over, and like what can I do to feel better about this?
Yeah, well, I've noticed like in times in my life where my anxiety has gotten really bad, I literally kind of visualize it as me like floating up to like a night sky, like specifically a night sky, because it feels really like infinite and kind of scary. Like it has stars in it, but it's not like broken up by clouds. Like there's no place to sit.
Yeah.
I imagine like in the daytime you could like sit on a cloud. This feels like I'm kind of like my head is like literally like floating up to space, and it feels really scary for me. Like the world suddenly feels really big and really scary.
Yeah, there's no like ceiling to
that's like literally how I visualized my anxiety in the past. And what grounds me is like talking to people that like I'm like, you're here right now, like I know you to be true. Mm-hmm. And so like I felt kind of this sense of not feeling grounded today, and called my mom and was like, what's going on in your life, what's going on in your neck of the woods? Also just like kind of like talked about things that were bothering me too, but also just like talked to her about like what she's been up to. And that's always like a grounding thing for me. It doesn't always have to be people though. I mean, for me it just often is, because I need to like talk things things out. But sometimes it's like not even people.
Yeah.
Well, here's hoping it gets better.
It gets better. What's your thorn this week?
My thorn has been kind of what I was just talking about. Just my anxiety has been high this week. It's not unmanageable, because I think, as like everyone who listens to this podcast knows by now, like I take an antidepressant, so like it always kind of stays relatively even keeled, but there are moments or periods of time in my life where my anxiety feels heightened, and I notice it in, like, it manifests in different ways. So like the last couple of weeks, it's been like I've been having a hard time swallowing when I've been eating. Like I like keep feeling like I'm like gonna choke, or like just really fixating on my chewing. Like that's been difficult. Other times it manifests in like me having trouble sleeping, which like I have been feeling kind of restless at night. Yeah, it manifests different ways, and this week it's been that. And I think one of the frustrating things about this week's anxiety is just that it's not necessarily related to one thing. It's not like I have this thing going on that's causing me anxiety. It's like I think it's more of a combination of just how much I have going on in my brain. Some of it good, some of it bad, but either way, it's like I always have something to think about, and that is like kind of overwhelming. And I also feel like I'm getting mixed messages, because it is like you're hearing hopeful things, but then you're hearing negative things about the hopeful things. So, you're hearing about the vaccine, but then you're hearing about the strains, and then you're hearing people say, no, but it's okay because the vaccine targets the strains. But then you're hearing people say, well, actually, it might not be. We don't really know if that's true. And it's just like, it's a lot. And I feel like my brain, I have like good things going on at work, but then I'm like thinking about those things. And I'm like, okay, but I have to plan for those good things. Like I have to like, I have a writer coming to work with us, and I'm like, okay, I have to make sure that everything's set up for her. And then, I don't know, just like lots on my brain. And I was just like telling my mom, and she was like, yeah, that is like a lot just like rolling around in your head at all times. Like I can imagine how that's manifesting in anxiety. So I can like see the end of the light at the end of the tunnel with that. And I'm just doing my best to manage it and remember that it's temporary. And my phone background right now is just ride the wave. Ooh. Like literally that's what it says. It's like a little wave of seaweed. This is a very
seaweed cast.
This is a sea themed podcast now. It just says ride the wave, and I feel like I usually have my phone background like reflect either how I want to feel or maybe how I am feeling, and that to me is like ride the wave of this moment that you're in, where you feel uncertain, where you feel sad, where you feel anxious about the different things going on in my life, and also like ride the wave of this weird time that we're all going through. Because I think that's kind of the other thing too, is like we're all going through our own personal stuff. Some of it like directly impacted by the pandemic, other things like very subtly impacted, like, oh, like the fact that I'm working from home is wearing on me. I'm working from home because of the pandemic, but that's not necessarily, the pandemic isn't necessarily what's causing me anxiety. It's the working from home, which this is just like a hypothetical because that's not really the case for me. But I think like it's hard because we're all dealing with our own stuff, and then we're dealing with this stuff as a collective, where if you go to someone and say like, I'm feeling this, they're kind of like, yeah, same. And then you're like, oh, this feels now kind of scary. Like, I don't know. It's just interesting. So my phone background is ride the wave. Just like you will all, like if you just stand in front of the wave, you will get pushed down. But if you just try to ride it, you might go underwater for a second. You might get a little salt water in your nose. I hate when that happens. Like it's not always going to feel good. And it may be kind of scary for a minute, but you probably will be able to stand up faster if you just ride the wave instead of letting it knock you down. Anyway.
my phone background says don't overthink it, which is also great.
Don't overthink it. Just ride the wave.
Highly recommend, honestly, setting your phone background to a mantra like that, because it honestly helps me.
It does. Every time you look at your phone. And you know what? Like before I got my job, my phone background was good things are coming. And I said it in like January, right?
Good things done came.
And I got my job in March, and it was true. It was true that like things just, good things did come. And having that background was just like, I didn't know that they were definitely going to come, but I was like, maybe if I just set this here and I set this intention and I look at that every day, maybe good things will come. And they did. This has been like the longest, literally this Rose and Thorn, I feel like goes with the theme of the podcast about like witty sayings and like advice, but we're just like getting into it.
Our phone backgrounds are maybe some good advice.
I also like got a notification just now from our podcast Instagram that was like Lizzo started a live video, but I thought it was like Lizzo liked something and I was like, what?
Shout out to Lizzo, friend of the pod.
Shout out to our Instagram, go follow it. All right, so what is your rose?
My rose is that my lovely friend Paige, who I feel like I shout out on this podcast all the time, but it's really because she deserves it, sent me a surprise gift that arrived this week. And it was a cute little bundle of a blind date with a book and a candle in like a vintage teacup. So I walked downstairs and saw this box and I was like, I didn't order this box. And it was just so like nice. Like it was just such a treat to like have her see that listing and think of me, and then like not just think of me and be like she would like that, but then like go to the effort of actually getting it for me.
Oh, that's very sweet.
Yeah, because like I feel like I see things sometimes online and I'm like, this friend would like that, but then I don't actually like go forward with it.
Yeah, or you like save it for like a birthday or something. But she just was like, I like this, so I'm gonna send it to her like just as a fun surprise, like unrelated to a holiday or a birthday. Or
it was so sweet.
Very sweet.
Yeah, definitely brightened my day for sure.
It was fun.
Yeah. What's your rose?
My rose is similar. Our friend Jen stopped by our apartment for a little socially distanced greeting. I was gonna say hang, but it was like we just like stood like there,
a
you
mini
know.
Catch up.
Yeah, like it's not like we like were sitting outside.
Yeah.
But she brought us just like these cute little cards to let us know that she was thinking about us, and some candy that we like, some Easter candy, the mini Cadbury eggs and the Starburst jelly beans and a couple of face masks. And it was just like this cute little, just like, hey, I was thinking of you and I saw this candy and I thought I'm going to buy that for my friends. And it was so good to see her in person. We haven't seen her in person since like November. And just to like hear about her life, and
it was, you know, so like
just catch up.
So full disclosure, that catch up and the arrival of my gift from Paige happened in the same morning.
Marissa was buzzing.
I was like so positively overwhelmed by the power of
I like went back to work and Marissa like came in my room, was like, oh my God, I just feel like I'm high. Like, I forget what you said, but you were like, I just can't even focus.
I was like sweating. My heart was beating really fast.
It was so funny.
I was like, oh my God.
I was like, I have a meeting I have to go to. She was like, I just am
like,
buzzing.
I need the day off.
Yeah, she literally was like, I don't know how I'm going to ever get through this day. But like in a good way.
It was like in a positive way. It was just too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to both of them though. They definitely brightened the week.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Paigey.
Okay.
Enough of the jokes.
Yeah, I hate laughing and joking around. I think that's so annoying when people like sit around laughing and joking. It's like, shut up already.
That's how I felt about my neighbors last night.
Oh yeah,
I was like, don't have any fun.
Oh yeah, should I play my my
what did
video?
you even say? I forget now.
I made a TikTok because Marissa was mad at our neighbors for like literally just like
for having fun.
Having fun, and I like made this TikTok.
Absolutely no room hanging, please.
We love that voice
because Marissa
trick.
was like, why can't you just hang out in your living room? Why do you have to hang out in the room that's directly below mine? And so I made that.
I'm so crotchety.
No room hanging.
I really
Please.
Speaking of like advice, I really need to like lighten the heck up.
Do you want to start with your piece of advice about that? I just feel like that's topical.
Okay, yes. So, speaking of getting annoyed by things such as your neighbor's laughter from below you, something that we said in my household a lot growing up, and that I think a lot of people say, is don't sweat the small stuff.
There's a book called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff.
I really need to read it because I do be sweating the small stuff.
I do feel like you are someone who sweats the small stuff.
I'm like not good at gauging how worried about something I should be.
That's
Like,
interesting.
I feel like I just have two settings. I'm either like okay or I'm stressed out. And like
Interesting.
I will be at the same level of stressed out for stupid things and for real worthy of being stressed things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that you are someone who like sweats the small stuff. Like
That's why my phone background says don't overthink it.
yeah. It doesn't mean that you're like constantly like in a state of sweating. But I think also like sweating, I think like sweat the small stuff is like specific wording because it's like it's not being like don't overreact to the small thing. It's literally just being like don't like let it like yank at you. Like it's not like you're like freaking out. I can't stop thinking in the TikTok voice. That's like the vibrato voice. It's like, don't let it get. I don't know.
We should deliver all our advice in that voice. Don't sweat the small stuff.
I wish. Should I just like film a TikTok for every single one of our advice things?
Oh my god.
So like maybe that'll be what we do on social media. Who knows?
Wow. Innovation. Yeah. It's pretty self-explanatory. And again, I think a lot of people have heard that one before, but it really is important to kind of like step outside of a situation and be like, if the worst case scenario happened, would it even be that bad?
Yes.
And for the small stuff, it's not.
And when I say yes, I mean like I agree with that sentiment. Not yes, it would be.
No, I know. But the thing is, like, I like that piece of advice because it's not saying like, let everything roll off your back. Like, you shouldn't be stressed. You should live carefree. Because, like, there are some things that are not small stuff and that are worthy of, you know, letting take your attention and focus and stress and all that stuff. But there are also a lot of things that don't deserve that sort of energy. What's your first piece of advice?
My first one comes from Angelina Jolie / my mom.
Wow.
So the first one, my mom, the same person, my mom.
Mom, Angelina Jolie.
So, my mom one time told me, I'm someone who kind of gets like it's a shocker, some anxiety in my relationships. I'm like, how am I supposed to feel? Like, I went through a lot of like, am I in love? Am I supposed to, what does love feel like when I was younger?
What is love?
I still do. And my mom one time said to me, I was reading a magazine or maybe she was watching something and someone asked Angelina Jolie, are you and Brad ever going to get married? You have all these kids together. This was like a while back, obviously. And, are you going to get more kids? Are you going to do this? And like, we're just asking questions. And she was like, I don't know because we don't necessarily sit around talking about our relationship and everything we're going to do. We just live in our relationship and enjoy it for what it is right now. And so what I wrote down for this was don't sit around talking about your relationship, just live in it. Because I think that sometimes when you overanalyze your relationship, the steps you're in, how you feel about it, how that person feels about you, it can take some of the joy out of just like having that person. And it's just something that I've had to employ in a couple of different relationships. I've had to just be like, you know what? You're overanalyzing this. You're putting too much weight on this one thing, or you're taking any feelings that you do have or any joy that you do have, you're kind of sucking it out by trying to analyze it. And so that's something that's been really important for me.
Yeah, I feel like that can apply to different things too. Like, I could also see that easily applying to like career. Like, I think a lot of, at least for someone like me who kind of like gets stressed out by like making career goals and stuff, I think like a lot of people are always like, what's my path? And like, how am I going to get there? And then they like shame themselves if they're not there. But I think there's something to be said about like living in what you have and like a healthy amount of planning, but not so much planning that it's like taking over your present reality.
Yeah, and like your partner doesn't need to know like your every waking thought. Like they don't need to know, oh, I'm feeling a little. I mean, definitely share with them things that like that you want to, but I think like I remember going to my partner and being like, are we like in love? Like whatever. Like I just feeling confused and you know, sometimes it's like going to them with it or sitting around talking about it doesn't actually help. It doesn't change how you feel. What's your next one?
My next one is I think just my favorite piece of advice I've ever gotten, and like the thing that stood out to me the most when we were talking about doing this sort of theme of an episode. I wish I could remember the first situation that this was told to me, like why it was initially told to me. But my dear mother, when I was younger, I know I was younger, I just don't remember like when. I was like stressed about something, and she told me that when I was going into this thing, I don't know if it was like an event or a performance or a test or something, she was like, act like you're playing the role of someone who feels comfortable doing that. Mm-hmm. So like, you know, if it's a presentation, it's like put on the role of someone who's great at public speaking.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure, maybe I was in high school, because I'm pretty sure I was like in theater at the time, because I kind of remember her connecting that and being like, you've acted before, like you know what it's like to act, so like apply that to your life and like act comfortable.
Yeah.
And I think
it's sort of a fake it till you make it
exactly
thing.
I was just gonna say, I feel like I've heard like different iterations of that, and people saying like in terms of like confidence, like if you act confident you might start to like absorb that and then like really feel confident.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've kept that one in my back pocket, and I think it's very helpful.
Yeah, definitely. You've said it to me before, and I've liked it too.
Yeah. Thanks, Mom.
My next one also comes from my mom, and it is
Angelina Jolie.
What?
Angelina Jolie.
Yeah, Angelina Jolie. No, just my mom on this one, but it's you can have different friends for different reasons. And this has been a huge thing, and this has been something that I think I've talked about on the podcast. I've told Marissa it multiple times. I've told other friends this. You can have different friends for different reasons. You don't have to have one friend be everything. And sometimes you'll find that you can't, a lot of times you'll find that you can't have that. You know, the friend that you have a good time with and that you can go out with on a Saturday night might not be the person that you confide in when something goes really wrong. Or the friend that you really rely on for, you know, if say you have a friend who is in a really great relationship and you sort of look up to that aspect of their life, and you know you get a lot of great advice from them on that, doesn't mean it's going to be the same friend that you go to when you're dealing with family stuff, or like it's saying that like it doesn't mean that you have to discard them just because someone isn't everything. So I've figured out like certain friends of mine, I really enjoy them in my life, and I'll be like maybe I go to them once for advice and I don't really get much out of it, or I go to them when I'm feeling sad and they're not that helpful, and then I'll be like, I'm not thinking of anyone specific, by the way, you're all great, but I will like go to someone and not really get the reaction out of them or the advice out of them, or just like the conversation that I need, and I'll be like, oh wow, okay, I thought we were better friends. And what I've learned is to just not think of it like that, to be like, oh, like I guess that's not something I'm really going to go to that friend for. And quite literally, I will find myself texting different friends for different purposes. Like I'll text someone and be like, hey, like I know that you'll get what this is like, or hey, I know that we've talked about this and connected about this before, or like, hey, I know that you're interested in this, want to go with me. Like you can have different, you don't have to rely on the same friend. If you get really lucky, you do find one or two friends who are everything. Like I feel like Marissa's like my everything friend. Like I feel like
your everything.
I'm your like except like Marissa would not like go to go out like to like a club on like a Friday night, but like neither would I. So that's
introvert energy.
right. So like neither would I. So that just like doesn't really come up as a problem. But like I feel like I can go to Marissa for all different kinds of advice. And for like, because we enjoy doing the same activities, like we can also like have fun together. Whereas like some friends, it's like you have a really deep connection with them, but they're not necessarily like, they don't share necessarily your same interests,
like leisure time. Yeah.
right? Or you're just in a different place in life as them, and so like you don't gravitate towards the same like social scenes or whatever. But I just really valued this growing up from my mom, and even now. And when I find that I'm disappointed by a friend, I kind of reframe it as like, maybe they're just not the friend for that purpose.
Yeah, I really distinctly remember the first time that you told me this advice, and it was because of that sort of situation where the friend in question really let me down and like disappointed me, and I had to evaluate it and be like, oh, I really expected this person to like do everything for me and like be devoted to me as a friend. And it turned out that that wasn't true. So then I kind of had to grapple with like, does that mean we shouldn't be friends at all?
Yeah.
And then that advice sort of helped me be like, no, it doesn't mean, it's not so black and white. Like it just means that they serve a purpose in my life that's still valuable, but they don't serve every purpose in my life.
Right. Yeah. I know people have heard us. You just reminded me that we have talked about this on the podcast, because I know that you've touched on that friend before in that situation. So you've probably heard us talk about this before, and maybe you've employed it into your own life. That said, don't deal with crappy friends. Like don't deal with people who are like toxic to you or whatever, but you know, don't feel like you have to cut someone out just because they're not everything, and don't feel like someone who you expect to be everything is necessarily letting you down. I mean, you're entitled to feel let down, but I think either have a conversation with them or like reevaluate how you want them in your life in the first place. Mm-hmm. What's your next one?
My next one is that everyone is way more concerned with themselves than they are with you.
I love this one. This is something my mom also talked to me about growing up.
Yeah, I don't know where I heard this first, but it's just so true and so helpful. Like it's one of those things you hear and you're like, damn, that is nothing but the truth. Because it's just like, because then you can relate your own self to it and be like, yeah, anytime I'm in like a social situation or any type of like situation where I'm interacting with other people, I'm only focused on like what I'm doing wrong and like what I'm insecure about. And I'm never ever thinking like, oh, that person just like said something stupid, or like, oh, that person like has their hair weird today, you know, like those are only things that I would ever like think about myself. And I mean, that's a different thing. Like I also shouldn't be talking to myself that way, but you know, different advice for different reasons. But
no, I love that. My mom, I remember, this is a superficial, so that's like, you can take it as like a deep thing, right? Like, oh, I'm feeling insecure about X, Y, and Z, or I'm, you know, feeling just blah in this situation. But like, I remember being young. I remember one day I was in like maybe 4th or 5th grade, and I like kept changing my outfit in the morning. I couldn't figure out an outfit that I liked, and I didn't like the way my hair looked, and I was having a low confidence day. It's so funny to think like those still happen in like my 20s. I just couldn't.
Never leaves you.
And I just remember like, as I was like, my mom was like, you're gonna miss your bus, like come on, you gotta go. And I came downstairs and I was like, I just like burst into tears. I was like, I can't, like, I don't like the way I look. Like, I like nothing. I don't like the way these pants look on me, or this doesn't, I don't have a shirt that go. And I just was freaking out. And my mom was like, whoa. And I remember her telling me like, no one else is looking at you, because everyone else feels the same way about themselves.
Right.
And I also remember around this time, she gave me a quote. There's this movie called Ghosts of Mississippi. And
did we watch that together?
we did. So it's a movie about Medgar Evers. He was a civil rights leader. And there's this quote in the movie that the wife says, but she's quoting her late husband. And it's, when you hate, the only one that suffers is you, because most of the people you hate don't know it and the rest don't care. And I remember my mom telling me that, and I somehow related it to this quote, because I just remember thinking, oh yeah, people either don't notice you or they just don't care. people are going to either see your outfit and then like think nothing of it, or like they're not going to notice it at all because they're also like wearing an outfit that maybe they feel weird about it. And I think that overall these quotes are just trying to say like, you are so wrapped up in your head because that's your story and your narrative and you're stuck in your body, but everyone else is equally stuck in their own cycle of thoughts within their body.
Yeah, I feel like the like superficial version of this that I can think of is like when my hair is greasy, it's like the end of the world for me. Like I hate stepping outside if my hair is greasy. It's just like something that I like really fixate on, and it's annoying because I have oily hair and it's greasy like every other day. But I know that like when my hair isn't clean and I'm out in public, I feel like everyone looks at me and is like, her hair is so dirty, she looks so gross. And like when friends have been like, oh, I'm on like third day hair, does my hair look greasy? And I'm always like, no, I can't really tell.
Yes, that's so true.
So it's like the things that you're so aware of in yourself, chances are no one's ever noticed them. Mm-hmm. And if they did, it wouldn't be a big deal to them.
Yeah, well, because they're either going to like relate to it or they're not. And so they're just not going to think about it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like,
it all connects to, I think we talked about, we talked about it in the sense of like the cheesy listening to music on the street way last episode. But yeah, like the whole concept of the main character, like, definitely goes along with this because it's like everyone is the main character of their own story, so they're most concerned about themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's freeing to
it's
like
super freeing
realize that.
Yeah Okay. So I also feel like I kind of hijacked yours because then I like started a conversation all around it. Do you want me to just say my next one?
I will edit out the pauses. Yeah,
my next one is progress, not perfection. This is a very recent introduction to my life as advice, and it came from a notification pop-up on an app I was using, and it was just like, remember, progress, not perfection. And this has been so weirdly helpful to me. Normally it's like you'll see cheesy little stuff like pop up on Instagram or whatever, or even like I'm someone who's on Pinterest a lot, and you'll be like, that's cool. And you might pin it or you might save it or whatever. But this one like pierced through me because I just feel like I am someone who can be kind of an all or nothing person, and having the mindset of like any progress is progress. You don't have like, it doesn't have to be like you did it perfect. Like it doesn't have to be like you set out to do this thing and then you did that thing perfectly and therefore progress was made. Mm-hmm. It can be like you set out to do this thing, you almost did it, and
you're
even
still closer to it than
you're still closer to it than you were before. Yeah. And that in and of itself is progress. It's not that progress is the whole milestone itself. And I think that this has just stuck with me with so many things lately. I've just whenever I feel like I'm beating myself up on anything, I've just been like, well, am I closer than I was before? Did I do more, or did I try harder than I would have had I not done anything? And it's always true. It's always true that I've made some sort of progress just by opening the Google Doc and starting the draft, or by, whatever it is.
Pinning the healthy recipe.
Yeah. Going for a walk to CVS to pick up something I already needed, like a prescription, versus going for like an intentional walk. Okay. But did I walk? Yeah. So who cares? So that's been a really, really helpful one for me that I recommend. I recommend just telling yourself that. Next time you're beating up on yourself, say, was this progress? Yeah. I hope
I just heard your stomach.
Yeah, me too. I hope you said, yeah. So that's just, having that mindset has been such a game changer for me recently. And hopefully it'll stick with you too.
Hopefully it'll stick like glue.
Nice rhyme. All right. What's your next one, partner?
So I have to toot my own horn a bit because this is just something that I made up.
Advice from me to me.
Go me. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe I like heard this somewhere and I just adopted it and thought I made it up, but this is just a really important like friendship lesson that I feel like I've learned throughout my life. And it's just that if a friend has made up their mind about something, as long as, like, big disclaimer, it's not something that's going to, like, put themselves or anybody else in danger, if they've made up their mind, then there's a point where you just need to support them in that and help them through whatever they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if it's something dangerous, this doesn't apply.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, like if there's like a risky text they want to send, or like...
She's talking about me, guys.
Well, yeah.
No,
I
I'm
mean,
just kidding. But
I'm
like,
trying-
yeah.
But in general, like, I feel like that situation has happened to me a lot, where a friend is like...
With me.
I want to... friend. No, just like when a friend is like, I have been thinking about doing this thing.
Yeah,
but
it's me.
I want your advice. And like, I don't know if I should. I just feel like I have pretty good intuition, and I can tell when they're asking, but really they want support instead of like a logical answer.
Absolutely. You're so good about that. Even like 2 weeks ago, I was like, I really want to do that. I can't even imagine how that sounded right now through someone's headphones. The way I just like that response. I wanted to send a text, and I was talking to you about it, and you were like, I can tell from the way you're talking to me about this that you already want to do it, and that you're just kind of informing me and like hoping that I'll support it, because you'd already said something about how you didn't think that I should do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you were like, now I can tell that it's not just
How
a thought
badly
rattling
you want
around
it.
in your head, that
Yeah.
it's something you already want to do and are planning to do, and you just kind of need my support. And I was like, damn, that's evolved. Because it's true. Like at a certain point, it's like you got to let your friends and anyone in your life just like choose their own life, and you can tell them how you feel about it. But then when they're like, okay, but I'm going to do it, don't make them feel like crap about it. Just let them do it, because they're going to do it anyway, or they're going to want to do it. And if they don't do it, they're going to like want to do it. And then you're going to be like, I'm sorry, I didn't let you do it. Or they're going to do it and they're going to hide it from you. But I would never hide anything from Marissa, because I'm terrible about lying. So
and there's just no shame in this house. But
I've done things, and then like 5 minutes later been like, so Marissa, I have to tell you something I did. And she's like, what? And I'm like, well,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just think if I had to like specifically pick like my most important friendship advice, that would definitely be it. I just think that's a good thing to keep in mind with your friends. And I guess like family too, but I don't have much of them, so I don't really know.
Not much kinfolk.
Yeah, I don't have like, I guess like people have like like a sister. You know, I'd be like, my sister always comes to me asking for advice, but like I don't really have that. So.
It's me.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm gonna jump down my list a little bit. I got this advice about a week ago. Thank you. From a friend, and oh, man, I think they said this or they got this from something. But it hit me so hard. I even told my therapist about it.
Oh,
so,
man.
It is, you're not missing out on love. You're preparing for it. And I thought that was so special, like such a special reframe. And then when I talked to my therapist about it and told her this quote, she was like, you know, I have a friend who always says like, don't waste your time in an okay relationship when you could be using that time to find a great one. And I think the two kind of go hand in hand. And what I like about them is just this idea that you are never wasting time being single, or you're never, you know, if you do end up staying in a relationship for a little longer, or staying in an okay relationship when you could have been being single and working toward a great one, like that's fine. Like we all kind of have been there and hung on to things out of comfort and whatever. But I just loved the idea that everything that you're going through is purposeful for a future season. And I loved the idea that if you recently went through a breakup, or you ended something, or you just don't have something yet, it's not time that you're missing out on love. It could just be time that you're preparing for it, because it's going to come, but you don't know when. And in the meantime, you're building up, either a stronger sense of self, or independence, or you're just like learned a hard lesson by having a relationship end that you're going to bring forth to your next one. And I really like that school of thought, that everything is connected in a way that'll eventually better suit you for the things that are coming for you.
Yeah, I like that, because it's a little bit of a reframe of like, you should give your best self to your partner.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like a lot of people will say, like, you should feel like you're the best version of yourself and, like, not need someone to complete you. Like, you should have 100% of your parts and then, like, be the best version of you to give
You can't love someone else until you love yourself.
Yeah, and, like, that stuff is obviously true. Like, we should all love ourselves. But I think that...
But whatever.
But whatever about that. No, I feel like what you said is, like, it's not necessarily about being, like, the best version of yourself. It's about the fact that everything that happens to you creates yourself.
Right.
And so everything that's happening or not happening or whatever is just kind of like compiling itself into the version of yourself that you're going to be when you meet your person.
Right. And this same friend was telling me, you know, like, if you believe in, like, there, you know, you have, like, your one out there and they're just, like, you know, out there and you haven't met them yet, it's also giving them more time to be a better person for you. So that's, like, the reframe of, like, taking it off of yourself too, and being like, maybe I'll meet someone who will be that much better because they are going through the same stuff as I am right now, but I haven't met them yet. And so maybe by finding love later, or by having to go through things first, we'll both be a better match for each other. If there's, like, that 1%, which I think that, I know, I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole.
Separate podcast.
I was about to just, like, go down this whole, like,
do we have soulmates?
This whole fate rabbit hole that's, like, I don't think it's, like, like, it doesn't have to be, like, that person is chosen by the universe and you're working toward them. I feel like whoever it is, like, it doesn't have to be, like, pre-chosen.
Whoever
oh my God,
there they are.
I can't get into free will, but yeah, I like the idea.
I
just can't get into that right now. I'm not okay.
Everyone's asking me to get into
Everyone
free will.
keeps texting me and calling me and saying, Jessica, when are you going to talk about free will on the podcast? And you know what?
You just can't.
I just can't today because, like, we only have, like, 10 minutes left and I just can't. So
can't
please respect this.
Oh
respect my choice. God. Okay. What's your next one?
Oh, goodness gracious. I'm gonna
I like this episode.
Yeah, I feel good.
Okay. Good check-in.
I'm gonna hop to one that kind of, I think, follows that one well, and it's that you can never be behind because your track is completely your own. What?
I don't know. I love that, but it's just, you can never be behind because you're always looking like, I don't know why. I just, like, thought I was
track.
I was trying to think of a joke. I was like, you can never see your behind.
You can never see your caboose unless you
or, like,
look in a mirror.
You know, like when people say, like, they stabbed me in the back in front of my face. Like, whatever. Like, that's what this just brought up, like, the sillies for me. Anyway, go on.
But I feel like it relates just because of the concepts of, like, wasted time and, like, waiting for something to happen or whatever. I don't know who I got this from. It might have been our friend Maddie, but I can't remember for sure. I just feel like there are a few things about me that make me feel like I'm behind other people, and I often will do, like, the whole comparison thing and be like, well, this person is my age and they've done XYZ and they've checked all the boxes that I haven't checked.
My mom and I talked about this on our podcast episode together.
Yeah, comparison do be the thief
and
of that
Angelina
joy.
Jolie said,
oh my God. But yeah, it's important to remember that, like, we really are each on our own individual tracks of life. So as long as you're on your track, it's impossible to be behind because it's its own track. Like, it's not like we're all on the same track and we're on different trains. It's like we're each just on our own tracks.
Yeah, and, like, some people's train, if you were the train, then you have to, like, go up a hill. Or and, like, so it's like you might seem like you're like the other train who's on a straight track that's not going over hill.
Seems like it's way ahead of you.
Yeah, but you just, like, went up a hill.
It's a different track. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you might at one point go downhill when they're again still, so you gain momentum. It's just,
might do a little loop-de-loop, a little left turn, and you set yourself straight. Bada bing, bada boom, baby.
Love it.
What's your next one?
My next one is from my mom.
Angelina Jolie.
This joke. Patty Kasparian, everyone.
Bit. My favorite bit.
And it's, don't date someone with more problems than you. My mom just firmly believes this. Like, because I think it goes through the school of thought that's like, you shouldn't have to like be anyone's hero. No one should be relying on you for their own happiness, things like that. But as a way to kind of like make sure that doesn't happen, her thing is like, don't be dating people with more problems than you. If you get into a relationship or you're dating someone and it just seems like they've got all of this stuff going on already, it's like, don't involve yourself in it. Of course, like people deal with things, and it's not to say like you're in a relationship and things come up to just like be like, you have too many problems now, bye. But it's just saying like sometimes you meet someone and you're kind of like enamored by them, or even you enjoy their problems. You enjoy like the chaos of them. Oh, they're so deep, they're so dark, whatever. Scorpio vibes. But it's like ultimately if they just have like a lot going on, it's like it's probably going to end up affecting you and your relationship, and sometimes it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it to be dating someone with more problems than you have.
And I feel like it's not necessarily about the person and the problems, it's more about the timing.
Yeah.
Like if that's true, like if they have all these issues going on, then like they really shouldn't be in a relationship. Like they shouldn't be, they should be working on themselves, because clearly they have a lot going on. So yeah, I think it's talking about like timing and when people are like ready to, you know, rely on another person.
Yeah, like my mom has said to me about one of my relationships, she said, you know, damn, this person seems to have a lot of hang-ups. Like, it's not even that they have like more, like that they have problems or that they have more problems than me, but just like a lot of hang-ups that I don't have. Like a lot of things that like I'm in a different place than them, and so can be more go with the flow and more with ease. And it's just like, it seemed like every turn of the road, like I was hitting a hiccup with them, and she was like, you know what? They seem to have more problems than you do right now. I don't think this is a good match. Like, because he's the one who's got all these things going on, these hiccups, and and these hangups, and you don't. And so you're the one being affected by it because you're the one who's suffering under his issues, suffering under his hangups. You don't get to be in the relationship that you want because of his stuff that's going on, and that's not fair. So yeah.
Okay. My next one is something that I have learned from my mom. It's not something that she's ever like outright told me, but I can just like sense this in her. What?
I love that. I love that you're like, she's never given me this advice, but I took this projection. Like you're like, I'm projecting this advice on her. Yeah, it's a vibe. She just said it without saying it.
Exactly. She said it in the silence. It's just that you don't know someone's whole story, and that you should try your best to accept and understand people where they are. You know, there are tons of cliche ways to say this, like walk a mile in someone else's shoes and don't judge a book by its cover, and like all those like cliche things. But at the root of it, I think it really is true. And like, not to step on my like diplomatic high horse, but I really think that is the key to solving all the issues our country has with the divides between like political parties and views and everything like that. I think that we do a lot of like antagonizing.
Okay.
But othering too. Like I'm guilty of this. Like I have my, you know, Bumble profile set to all liberal people, but I just feel like
that's for mental health.
Yeah. I mean, just personally, like I don't want to date someone with like conservative views, but I think that if we don't even give people even a sliver of a chance to try to understand where they're coming from, there's a 0% chance that we're ever going to understand them because we didn't try. My mom like takes this to an extreme, I think, because like she is like, she's voted Democrat, like, you know, she's a chill lady. She didn't vote for Trump. She didn't like do anything problematic, but she watches Fox News sometimes. And I'm always like, Mom, why are you watching Fox News? And she's like, well, I just want to make sure I'm not like limiting myself to one perspective, and I'm like hearing where people are coming from and like just trying to see the whole picture, which like is hard to do, and like I don't do it, but I think I should try.
I already do feel like I get where like conservatives are coming from, because I do feel like I have a lot of empathy, so I can be like, I get how you would feel if you were getting like your money taken away, or I get how you would feel if such and such. but I am just like, I don't care. I understand it. I understand the logic behind it, and yet I don't care because I just think they're on the wrong side of history, or at least I think Trumpers are on the wrong side of history, and I think conservatives are on the wrong side of history for backing him as a candidate, and I think that has tainted the party more for me.
Yeah, I mean that's like the extreme of it, and like I said, like I do that too, and like it's hard not to, but I think it's even easier to apply it more generally to life. Like if someone like snaps at you, or like, you know, a coworker like sends a nasty email or something like that, like those types of like interpersonal.
Hey, ugly.
Like when Jess wakes up and says, "Good morning, ugly bunch."
I've never said that.
No, just like things like that I think are a little more palatable than the like political divides angle. But, you know, just like if something like that happens to you, then like you never know what is going on in someone's head. And like there could be something really tough going on with them. So yeah, I think it just is like be empathetic and be understanding of other human beings.
Totes my goats. My last one that I'll say is work related. So I had an editor tell me, pay attention to when tasks that once didn't bother you start to bother you, and pay attention to when like you start to become disenchanted with things that used to seem manageable. And essentially it's just, you know, to pay attention to when you start feeling burnt out, but also like do something about it, because usually you don't go from 0 to burnt out. There's a period of time where you're noticing like, wow, this is taking me a lot longer to do, or like, wow, I'm getting really like worked up about being asked to do this, or wow, this is like, you know, I don't understand this, and I don't want to understand this, and like there's some sort of resistance there. And she was encouraging me to keep that in mind for it wasn't during a time where I was necessarily feeling burnt out that she told me this, but she'd experienced burnout in a job before, and so she just was saying to me, try to check in with yourself, take mental health days, take your PTO days, reach out to your supervisors, because accommodations can be made to make you feel better and to make your job better, you know, delegate things, whatever it is that works for your job. And I thought that was just really important, because I think that we hear about burnout a lot, and that sometimes we don't know how to prevent it or to solve it once it's happening. And, you know, not everyone is lucky enough to have really receptive bosses that are willing to help them fix it, or even receptive to hearing about the fact that their employee is feeling burnt out or feeling frustrated or feeling exhausted by something. But I think at the very least, taking note of like when things start to become overwhelming or really burdensome that once weren't is a good like litmus test for being like, maybe there's something going on here. Maybe it's in my personal life that's affecting my work, or maybe it's in my work life. And trying to do something about it and be active about it, whether that's like looking for a new job, because like sometimes it might get there, or it might be like really is no way to fix this, or like I don't have a boss who's open to hearing about this, and so maybe it's like means leaving. But yeah, I thought that was really nice coming from a manager.
Yeah, I also think that sometimes you have to get to your lowest burnout point to know what it feels like. And even though that's not a good experience or fun experience to go through, it does help you to recognize the warning signs before you get there again.
Yeah.
Because like I had this like infamous breakdown at work a couple years ago where we were just in our busiest season, and I was so overwhelmed, and I like cried during a team meeting and had to like leave for the day. So now I just like know that in myself, and I am doing all I can to never get to that point again, because I'm trying to like actively think about what the like downward slope was to get there.
Yeah.
And once I see those signs, like you said, I'm like, okay, I need to do something about this.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so we thought we'd end on maybe some things we've picked up from each other, mainly because there's one from Jess that has really helped me and really sticks out to me. And that is, if you're torn in some way with decision making, you should imagine that you're flipping a coin
Or actually flip it.
or flip it, yeah, and think about which side or which result you would want it to land on.
Or alternatively, what would you want someone to tell you to do?
Yeah.
Because that's also how it works. Like, it's like sometimes I want to do something. And sometimes, like, I remember one day I was like, do I want to order Thai food or do I want to order Veggie Galaxy? And it was like, I wanted Marissa to be like, get Thai food. I'll order it too. And that's how I knew. Like, because she also wanted to, she was like definitely getting Veggie Galaxy or something like that. It's like, whatever. Like, sometimes you just like, you kind of know what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you go to someone for advice, like, you realize that like you want them to tell you that advice. Like, you want them to agree with what you already think you want.
Yeah.
So those are the two ways to think of it.
Which ties into what I had said before about like sometimes people have made up their mind and they really just want you to like support them in that decision.
Get the Thai food.
Yeah, get the Thai food, man.
Yeah, from Marissa, one of the biggest things that she's told me over and over, which she didn't invent necessarily, which I didn't invent the flipping the coin thing.
No, I'm just kidding.
But is just go with your gut. Like, anytime I'm struggling with something, she'll be like, well, what does your gut tell you? And that wasn't really something, like, I know it's a phrase that I'd heard before, but I'd always be like, I don't feel anything in my gut. Like quite literally, it'd be like, there's nothing. I don't feel it.
It's all squishy.
But yeah, but I think I've started to like, for me, go with your gut is what would you want someone to tell you? Like,
True.
And so we have said it to each other, but in a way that makes sense to the other person in a way.
Yeah.
And I just think that that's kind of that advice and knowing. What's funny is I can often anticipate what Marissa's going to tell me for advice.
Yeah, because it's always go with your gut.
It's always go with your gut. And it's also just like, you're valid for feeling that way and X, Y, and Z. And so I can often anticipate like literally like Marissa's whole response to like advice that I would give. And it's always good. It's always good. But yeah, that's one of the biggest things that I can think of you saying to me over the years.
Yeah, I feel like, they have that like Staples button that says that was easy.
Yeah.
I feel like the Marissa button is go with your gut.
Yeah. I wish I could think of more, but I just can't. Like, I know like you've given me very specific advice on specific situations. So I'm trying to think of like the general version of that. But I think like the biggest thing is just go with your gut. That's what you always be saying.
Go with it. And speaking of going, we gotta go.
All right. I hope this was helpful, or no, it doesn't have to be helpful.
Entertaining.
I hope this was entertaining.
Enjoyable.
I hope something resonated with you. If you have heard this piece of advice, please tell us in the comments where you heard it, like who told it to you and why. Or if you hadn't heard something and you think it's interesting and it like stuck with you after listening, please comment that on our Instagram post. And remember that you can rate us on iTunes and you can leave a comment in the ratings, and you can follow our Instagram, and you can follow us individually. And that's that on that.
Pluggity plug,
as they say. We will see you next week.
Bye.
Still no proper outro.